Tim Hortons has quite literally dominated the Canadian fast food market for the last 60 years. It is Canada's #1 fast food business in terms of revenue, popularity, and number of locations. It's got more than 3,500 stores as of 2023, which is more than twice as many as the world's largest fast food brand, McDonald's. It is also the third largest coffee chain in the world, right behind Starbucks and Dunkin'. However, in recent years, this iconic brand has navigated through tough times, marked by internal challenges, rising competition, and changing consumer tastes. Once the undisputed king of the Canadian coffee world, Tim Hortons now grapples with the realities of a market in transformation. The journey of Tim Hortons paints a picture of a brand that might be in its last few successful years. In the early 1960s, the Canadian coffee shop landscape was dotted with local diners and independent cafes, each craving for the attention of the everyday Canadian. Amidst this scene, April 1964, a new player entered the scene in Hamilton, Ontario. This was Tim Hortons, a venture by Canadian hockey legend Tim Horton. Renowned for his strength and endurance on the ice as a defenseman in the National Hockey League, Horton was a household name in Canada. His venture into the coffee business was seen as an extension of his relentless pursuit of excellence. Unlike many of its contemporaries, Tim Hortons carved out a unique niche. While other coffee shops focused on a wide range of offerings, Tim Hortons kept it simple: exceptional coffee and fresh donuts. This focus on a few quality products combined with the founder's celebrity status gave it a competitive edge. The customers didn't just come for coffee, they came for a piece of Canada, a connection to a sporting hero. Tim Hortons' involvement in his new venture wasn't just a name on a sign, he was actively involved in the business. However, the rapid expansion and success of the coffee chain heralded its own challenges. As the store grew in popularity, Horton's career was reaching its twilight years. His life after hockey became increasingly intertwined with the coffee shop's growth. Unfortunately, Horton's life took a tragic turn. In 1974, he passed away in a car accident, a shocking event that deeply impacted the nation. His passing marked a somber moment in Canadian history, but his legacy lived on through the brand he helped build. The early years of Tim Hortons were marked by steady growth and an expanding menu. The introduction of never-seen-before new items like Timbits in 1976 captivated customers even further. But it was more than just the food and drinks that set Tim Hortons apart from his competitors. It was the sense of community, the feeling of being part of something essentially Canadian. To avoid participating in the Americanization of every other industry, as American fast food companies were expanding very fast at that time. The coffee shop became a gathering place, reflecting the values of its founder: hard work, perseverance, and a deep connection within the community. As the story of Tim Hortons unfolded, it became clear that this was not just a story of a successful business venture, but also one of corporate missteps, internal conflicts, and a growing detachment from the very values that once defined it, all of which ultimately resulted in Tim Hortons' downfall. As Tim Hortons embarked on its journey of expansion, it wasn't just opening new stores, it was weaving itself into the very fabric of Canadian identity. In the midst of its expansion, Tim Hortons launched a series of advertisements that resonated deeply with Canadians. Its marketing campaigns reflected Canadian values, often invoking themes of warmth, community, and most importantly, hockey, Canada's beloved sport. They were not just selling coffee or donuts. They were selling a piece of Canada itself. Due to this, Tim Hortons had become synonymous with Canadian culture. The brand's association with all things Canada wasn't just a coincidence. It was a carefully crafted identity. Tim Hortons positioned himself not just as a coffee shop, but as an essential part of the Canadian way of life. Tim Hortons' menu also set it apart. The introduction of the iconic items like the Timbit in 1976 became a cultural phenomenon. These bite-sized donuts were not just a culinary innovation. They were a marketing masterstroke, offering customers a unique and durable product that became synonymous with the brand. Furthermore, Tim Hortons' approach to expansion was community-focused. Each new store was more than just a business. It was a community gathering place. This approach was in contrast to some competitors who focused primarily on the urban upscale coffee market. Tim Hortons catered to all, from small towns to major cities, embedding itself into the fabric of communities across Canada. The impact of these strategies in the brand's growth was evident in its financial success. The revenue figures in the early 21st century, reaching billions of dollars, were a clear indication of its dominance in the Canadian market. The success was not just about outperforming competitors in sales, but also winning the hearts of Canadians, becoming an integral part of their daily lives. The period from 1995 to 2006 marked the significant chapter in the history of Tim Hortons, characterized by a strategic merger with Wendy's International. This merger was more than a business transaction. It was a pivotal moment that reshaped Tim Hortons' operations and market growth. In 1995, Tim Hortons merged with the American fast food chain Wendy's, a move initiated by Ron Joyce, the co-founder of Tim Hortons. This merger brought about substantial changes in the company's growth trajectory and business operations. One of the most notable impacts was the expansion into the American market. The merger provided Tim Hortons with the necessary capital and strategic support to venture beyond Canadian borders, tapping into the vast U.S. market. Joint operations with Wendy's also led to innovations in store format. Many locations were transformed into joint spaces, serving both Tim Hortons and Wendy's products, thereby offering a broader range of options to customers. This synergy aimed to capitalize on the strengths of both brands, enhancing customer experience and operational efficiency. Another significant aspect of this merger was the increased resources for expansion and growth. But the backing of Wendy's, Tim Hortons accelerated its expansion plans, both within Canada and internationally. This period saw a substantial increase in the number of Tim Hortons outlets, further solidifying its presence in the fast food industry. However, the merger also brought its own set of challenges. The brand, synonymous with Canadian culture, struggled to resonate with American consumers. This expansion, marked by significant investment and high expectations, faced stiff competition and failed to replicate the success Tim Hortons enjoyed back home. Financially, this endeavor became more of a challenge than triumph. With the anticipated returns from the U.S. market now materializing as hopes, the impact of this merger was more profound than mere financials. For many Canadians, Tim Hortons had always been more than a coffee shop. It was a symbol of their national identity. This identity appeared to dilute as the brand merged with an American fast food chain and shifted focus towards international expansion. The essence of what made Tim Hortons a beloved Canadian institution seemed to be fading, leading to a sense of disconnect amongst its loyal customer base. Partnership with Wendy's lasted until 2006, after which Tim Hortons re-emerged as an independent company. The separation allowed Tim Hortons to refocus on its core brand identity and strategies, particularly in the Canadian market. Post-merger period was marked by a re-innovation of the brand, as it sought to reconnect its roots and strengthen its position as Canada's leading fast food chain. In the next few years, Tim Hortons achieved a significant milestone with a revenue of approximately $3.07 billion in 2013. This impressive figure positioned Tim Hortons as the second largest coffee chain in the world, trailing only behind the global giant Starbucks. This period represented the height of Tim Hortons' financial success, reflecting its strong market position, particularly in Canada. Things were starting to look good for Canada's premier coffee shop once again, but that did not last too long, as RBI, the company that acquired Tim Hortons, was formed in 2014 as a result of the merger between Burger King and Tim Hortons. The idea behind this new merger was to create a global fast food powerhouse that could leverage the strengths of both brands to expand its global footprint, kind of similar to the Wendy's deal. The acquisition of Tim Hortons by RBI was an $11.4 billion deal, making it one of the biggest in the fast food sector at that time. The deal was partly financed by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, which provided $3 billion in preferred equity financing. The acquisition aimed to leverage Tim Hortons' strong brand presence in Canada and its expertise in the coffee and breakfast market, alongside Burger King's global presence and experience in the lunch and dinner markets. RBI's strategy was to accelerate Tim Hortons' growth in international markets, particularly in the U.S., where the brand had struggled to gain a strong foothold. However, the acquisition was now without controversy. Some Tim Hortons franchisees and Canadian citizens expressed concerns about the potential loss of Tim Hortons' Canadian identity under the ownership of a global conglomerate. There was also fears of a possible changes to Tim Hortons' operations, supply chain, and corporate culture. This eventually started to cause tensions between Tim Hortons franchisees and its parent company Restaurant Brands internationally. These tensions, arising from various operational and management issues, have had significant impact on the company's operations and its once stellar reputation. A primary source of tension stemmed from the franchisees' growing dissatisfaction with RBI's management decisions. The discontent was fueled by concerns over profitability and rising operational costs, which many franchisees felt were squeezing their margins. Unwelcome changes such as mandated in-store renovations and cost-cutting measures further aggravated the situation. Franchisees felt these changes were being imposed without adequate support or consideration of their financial and operational realities. These internal conflicts had a direct impact on Tim Hortons' expansion plans, particularly in the United States. The tensions between the franchisees and RBI made it challenging to execute a coherent and unified expansion strategy, leading to a pullback in the U.S. market expansion efforts. This setback in the U.S. expansion was a significant blow to Tim Hortons, which had been eyeing further growth in the American fast food market for years. The fallout from these tensions extended beyond operational challenges to affect the brand's public image. Franchisees publicly voiced complaints about increased costs imposed by the parent company, including higher prices for supplies and mandatory renovation. These increased costs came without a corresponding increase in menu prices or other support from RBI. This decision led some franchise owners to cut paid breaks and employee benefits, actions that were met with public backlash and portrayed the company as prioritizing profits over employee welfare. In some instances, employees and their supporters held public protests against certain Tim Hortons franchisees over cuts to benefits and other changes in working conditions. These protests received media attention and negatively impacted the brand's image as a responsible and caring employer. To make matters worse, Tim Hortons faced legal battles with its franchisees, particularly over the alleged misuse of National Advertising Fund. Franchisees accused the parent company, RBI, of improperly using these funds, which were supposed to be dedicated to promoting the brand. Tim Hortons, once celebrated as a beloved Canadian brand, started to see a decline in its reputation. The internal conflicts and perceived corporate missteps were not lost in the Canadian public, leading to a shift in perception about the brand's commitment to its core values and community roots. A few years following that, Tim Hortons faced significant government scrutiny and legal compliance issues. These challenges revolved around allegations of failing to honor commitments and violating privacy laws, placing the brand under the watchful eye of Canadian regulatory authorities. A prominent issue that brought Tim Hortons under government scrutiny was the allegation of privacy law violations through its mobile app. Reports surfaced that the app was collecting highly personal information about its users, which was seen as a massive invasion of privacy. These reports brought to light that the Tim Hortons app was collecting detailed location data, which would track and record customers' movements even when they were not using the app. Customer and privacy advocates took to various platforms, including social media and forums, to express their concerns about the extent of data collection and potential misuse of personal information. These discussions further amplified the issue, leading to increased revenue from privacy watchdogs and the general public. By 2019, Tim Hortons publicly announced its decision to scale back its expansion in the U.S. market. This was a strategic move that reflected the challenges and realities of international business growth. There were a few reasons for scaling back and closing down stores in multiple U.S. cities. First, the U.S. fast food and coffee market is highly competitive, with established players like Starbucks and McDonald's having a strong presence. Tim Hortons faced difficulties in gaining significant market share against these well-entrenched competitors, leading to softer sales growth than expected. Also, Tim Hortons' brand, deeply rooted in Canadian culture, faced challenges resonating similarly with the American audience. The brand's Canadian identity, a significant factor in success in Canada, did not translate as effectively in the U.S. market. The company also encountered operational challenges in the U.S., including issues related to franchise relationships and the alignment of business practices with the Canadian model. These operational hurdles impacted the efficiency and effectiveness of its U.S. operations. All this resulted in a strategic reassessment that led to a shift in focus towards strengthening and consolidating the brand's position in its core Canadian market, where it enjoys a strong presence and a brand loyalty. The shift involved reallocating resources and efforts more effectively between markets. By scaling back in the US, Tim Hortons could concentrate on consolidating its market leadership in Canada and other regions where its brand resonates more strongly. This includes focusing on enhancing customer experience, product innovation, and operational efficiencies. This would involve a more targeted approach to international expansion, learning from the US experience. As we delve into the present state of Tim Hortons, we uncover a landscape marked by challenges and shifting perceptions, painting a picture of a brand at a crucial juncture. Once the heart of Canadian coffee culture, Tim Hortons now navigates through a period tinged with uncertainty and change. In the backdrop of bustling streets and quiet neighborhoods where Tim Hortons stores have long stood, recent safety concerns have emerged. Stores in areas grappling with social challenges, notably mental health and addiction issues, have witnessed incidents requiring drastic measures like dining area closures. These safety issues, while localized, cast a shadow of the brand's image as a safe and welcoming community place. Amidst the global upheaval of the COVID-19 pandemic, Tim Hortons, like many others, face unprecedented challenges. Adapting to public health requirements, the brand implemented rigorous safety measures that altered its service models. However, the pandemic's impact went beyond operational changes, affecting customer behaviors and perceptions of the dining experience, leaving an indelible mark on the brand's narrative. The essential Canadian experience Tim Hortons offered seems to have lost some of its luster, with the reports indicating a decline in service quality and growing customer dissatisfaction. These aspects contribute to a narrative of a brand struggling to maintain its cherished place in the hearts of its patrons. The employees, the frontline ambassadors of Tim Hortons, have also felt the ripples of discontent. Challenges in employee relations, perhaps a reflection of broader corporate disputes, are mirrored in the service customers receive. To make things worse, the rise of Starbucks and other coffee shops in Canada has significantly impacted Tim Hortons, especially in recent years. This competition has influenced market share, customer preferences, and Tim Hortons' overall position in the Canadian coffee market. Tim Hortons and Starbucks together hold a substantial share of Canada's branded coffee shop market. As of a 2020 report, these two brands accounted for 75% of Canada's 7,476 store-branded coffee shop market. This statistic highlights the competitive landscape in which Tim Hortons operates, with Starbucks being a significant competitor. In terms of market share, as of 2021, Tim Hortons had a 13.7% share of the Canadian coffee shop market, while Starbucks held a 7.9% share. Although Tim Hortons maintained a larger share, the presence of Starbucks and other competitors has influenced choices and preferences. There has been a noticeable shift among consumers, especially among the under 35 demographic, towards preferences that Starbucks and other specialty coffee shops cater to. This shift includes a growing interest in specialty coffee beverages, ambience, and a cafe culture that offers more than just quick coffee service. Starbucks, known for its specialty coffees and cafe environment, appeals to this changing consumer preference, challenging Tim Hortons' traditional market model to quick service and basic coffee offerings. Increasing popularity of Starbucks in the specialty coffee market in Canada have coincided with Tim Hortons facing challenges related to its reputation and customer satisfaction. As Tim Hortons' reputation faced scrutiny due to various operational and management issues, Starbucks and similar brands have capitalized on this opportunity to attract customers. This competitive environment, along with Tim Hortons' internal challenges, has influenced sales and growth trajectory. Although Tim Hortons has seen growth in recent years, the rise of competitors like Starbucks has likely impacted this growth and its dominance in the Canadian coffee market. In response to this competitive pressure, Tim Hortons has initiated several adaptations, including menu innovations and store renovations, to better align with changing consumer preferences. The brand strategy going forward would likely continue to evolve in response to the competitive dynamics of the Canadian coffee market. Looking forward, Tim Hortons stands at a crossroads, where its response to these challenges will shape its future. Rebuilding the brand's reputation goes beyond the operational fixes. It requires a reconnection with its roots, a commitment to community values, and a renewed focus on the customer experience. How the brand navigates these waters will not only determine its path out of its perceived downfall, but also redefine its role in the Canadian and global market, especially with major competition with other brands. In this critical phase, the story of Tim Hortons is more than the corporate narrative. It's a reflection of the evolving relationship between a brand and its community. between tradition and change, and between past successes and future aspirations.